Good afternoon. Welcome, families and support people. I'm here with two dear friends and colleagues whom I'll ask to introduce in a moment. I'm Joanna Royce Davis, Vice President for Student Life at PLU. And I'm here with another Joanna.
Yes, hi, I'm Joanna Gregson, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. I make up the other half of the two Joannas on President's Council team. Because there are two of us, we're often known by our initials. So I'm JG.
And I'm JRD.
And we're joined by our student colleague.
Yes, my name is Gracie. I'm the ASPLU president, and I'm studying history and political science.
Thanks for joining us, Gracie. What we hope to do with you this afternoon is provide you with some information about the context in which we find ourselves, and also offer you some tips and perhaps some advice about how to serve as a resource and support for your student this fall. So I wonder if we might start in talking about what learning and engaging looks like in the current COVID context. JG, do you mind starting?
So another way that the learning experience will be different this semester is that many students will be learning remotely. They'll be learning from their kitchen tables, learning from the library, learning from their bedrooms, but learning nonetheless. And what's different about this year is also what's the same, and that's learning. Students will continue to be taught by some of the best professors in the world. People come to PLU as faculty because they want to teach students, they want to mentor students, they want to get to know students, and that will continue, even though it's done at a distance.
What about engagement, Gracie?
I know for ASPLU, we're going to have the opportunity to have some of our meetings virtually, which is something we tried out in the spring and went really well. But we're also going to be able to engage with students as we pass them, walking across campus and through our social media. So we're trying a variety of different ways to do that. And it's a big election year, and part of what ASPLU does is our Loop Vote program. So we help register students to vote, we help answer their voting questions, we help return their ballots to ballot boxes, and so that'll all be able to happen as well, but from a distance and sometimes on campus too. So I know from ASPLU at least, that's a little bit of what we're looking at.
And JRD, how can you comment on how health and well-being are part of learning and engagement?
So well-being for us in student life is an evergreen priority. What that means is it's a priority that transcends time and context. And what you're hearing from all of us is that our mission of care remains the same. It drives what's consistent, which is our showing up for students where they are and ensuring that they have the resources they need to be successful. And so our conversation with you, family members, and support partners is about what it means to be partners right now. If we were together today, we would be co-constructing a definition with you and forming some agreements. We hope we'll have that opportunity soon, perhaps through a Zoom call or two, perhaps using another modality. But I wondered if the three of us at least could start that conversation about what it means to be partners right now. JG, do you want to start?
I would love to start. I've been thinking a lot about this question because we know this time ahead of us will be in many ways similar and in many ways different from what it's been before. So I've been thinking a lot about what's been the most important part of partnership between the campus and our constituents before that we want to make sure we carry through. I think what defines PLU is our relational capacity. The fact that we are relationally oriented, that we care for one another, and I think that is a key part of partnership, is caring for one another and treating each other as humans and recognizing that. As somebody who works at PLU, that means my partnership with students, my partnership with families, my partnership with faculty means that I am looking to see what do you need, how can I support you in your learning, in your work, what can I do to help support you? That's my call. That's what I'm called to do as a partner.
One of our strong values at PLU is collaboration. And I wonder, Gracie, if you might be able to talk about some of the ways you've seen that occur.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been having a lot of those same thoughts about how we just have an incredible community and culture of care on campus. I think something that I'm really excited about is even as new students are physically on campus or off campus, I think there's still ways to engage and to collaborate, and that happens a lot in the classroom. I feel really lucky that PLU's classes are almost set up to do that really natural collaboration. But on top of that, I think there are the interactions with faculty and staff mentors, as you mentioned, that are really, really special. And I've already had that happen in the spring from a distance. I've been calling my professors over the summer, and they've been checking in on me and helping me prepare for grad school applications and all of that. So I've already been able to experience kind of that virtual connection and mentorship, and I think that's what it would look like moving into the fall.
I love hearing you say that, Gracie, because that reminds me that even though learning might happen at a distance, the relationship will still happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may be interacting with your faculty member or your peers through a computer screen, but at the end of the day, it's about the relationship. It's about the mentorship. It's about what you learn from each other. It's a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to you, Charity?
It means a commitment to one another's well-being. That's something that's thematic. I think it also means that support is available in a way that is present, that is flexible in the way that the COVID context requires from us. It's showing up again and again and continuing to problem solve until there's a solution that works well for all of the folks involved. It definitely involves patience in a way that partnership might not have prior, and then also persistence, this sense that when we move together, we have greater chance of reaching goals, and certainly for all of us, our goal is student success.
Something we talked about, JRD and I have been doing this for a couple of years now, the Joanna Show. Something we talked about last year that I've been thinking about a lot is we talked about, for parents, this being a time when they shift from manager to consultant.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about the partnership being not only the family, the support persons with the university, but also the support persons with their student.
Yes.
And I think about that partnership a lot too. And it really struck a chord with me, maybe as a parent of a now almost 19-year-old. Last year when we talked about when you're raising a kid through K-12, you're the manager. You're coordinating schedules and you're arranging things. But as they transition into young adulthood and as they move to college, you take on a consultant role. You're no longer the manager, right? Students become their own manager. And parents take on the role of consultant. They're on the sidelines, standing by to answer questions, to ask questions, right? To prompt new ideas in their students. But that role of manager is really different than the role of consultant or expert who's called in as needed, but is not there supervising everything.
Yes. So sometimes what that means is a family member is asking the question, have you tried contacting your faculty member? Or have you talked to Lute Telehealth? Give me a call back and let me know how that went. Or let's talk about that over dinner. Gracie, any examples of that?
Yeah, I mean, just in being home in the spring, I've been at my house in Olympia with my family, and I've actually been able to engage with them about some of the material that I was learning in my class, which was really cool. They got to learn what I was learning about in the classroom, and we kind of got to learn from each other in a really cool way that I think only distance learning really offered that. And so it gave my parents a good glimpse into the academic side of what I've been doing for my last few years at PLU.
That's so great.
Yeah, it's sort of an unintended benefit, I think, of distance learning,
Mm-hmm.
is that if your household members, your significant others, whoever it is you share a residence with, can also learn alongside you in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
It really is. So one of the things that we historically have talked about when we've been able to be present with family members and support people in person is to give some sense of the dynamics of the academic experience and to point to key resources for transition and success in the fall. JG, do you mind providing some information about that?
Sure. So yeah, this is the part where I generally talk about the rhythms of a semester. And Gracie, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this too. That it's important for support people, for family members to expect the ups and downs that come with a semester. I think, again, as a parent myself, I can imagine the phone calls and thinking that my child's stress meant, oh no, the sky is falling, when it was really just, nope, that was a fleeting thought I had, and now everything's fine. There are ups and downs in every day, and in the academic calendar, there are some rhythms, right? So everything's exciting in the beginning of the year, new classes, new people, except then it's not a little bit, because maybe if you're a residential student living on campus, maybe there's a little homesickness, but then it gets better, and it's so good. And then there's our first exams, which are stressful, but then those are passed, and then everything's great, and then it's midterms. It's up and down throughout the term. Gracie, have you experienced that as a student or watching your peers experience the up and down of emotions?
Definitely. I remember as a first year, there was that excitement early on. And one thing that I feel really lucky that I decided to do was I jumped right in with extracurriculars. So I've been in ASPLU since my very first year. And the fact that I had that community, that built-in community, also of peer mentors, students who are older than me, that really helped me, I think, along that natural rhythm. And so I knew a little bit better what to expect and what to expect from the first semester, because it's definitely a little bit rocky at some points.
And Jody, what about you from your experience, either working at a university or as the parent of a college student?
I've certainly had the experience from multiple perspectives. I have a student who's starting their second year at a Midwest university, and I can remember moments when I thought the sky might be falling for them and called frantically, trying to follow up after having a very challenging conversation and finally reaching them and them saying, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Past is past. I got over that with a chocolate bar and a walk. Right?
But one difference is, like, you and I went to college in the 1900s.
Oh yeah, was it the 1800s?
No, it's the 1900s. And in the 1900s, when we were in college, we would call our parents on Sunday night.
Right.
It was 10 cents a minute on Sunday night, and so you would call home on Sunday night, and you would save your highlights for the week and share them, right? But now it's so much easier for students to let their family members, their support people know throughout the day. So whereas when we were in school, our parents once a week heard probably just highlights because that's all we had time for.
That's right.
Students today can text their parents throughout the day, so parents are seeing the jiggity-jaggedy ups and downs
Yep.
that in our generation.
We're less likely.
We're less likely, yeah. So I think it's important for family members to know that this is normal, and it's part of interacting with your student. And maybe we'll get to that later and talk a little bit about
I think
some
so.
ideas, best practices for how families might interact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I did want to also touch on, while we're talking about academics and the rhythms of the academic semester, the opportunities we have at PLU for students to receive support for academics. So we have a Center for Student Success, which is housed physically on the first floor of the Morford Library. But in this time, we are also offering virtual services. So the Center for Student Success is sort of a one-stop shopping for the things students need to be successful in their academics at PLU. So they can get academic advising. That's the kind of advising about what classes should I take, how many credits do I need, am I on track to graduation? So that's academic advising. They can get that at the Center for Student Success. They can also get academic assistance, or what you might think of as tutoring. That also is part of our Center for Student Success. And we're offering that both in person in the Morfett Library and virtually. It's really easy for students to connect with those services. It's part of the PLU experience. It doesn't cost anything. I really, really hope students will take advantage of both the academic advising and the academic support that's available through academic assistance. Also in the library, we have our Writing Center, and they're offering virtual services this semester. The Language Resource Center for students who are involved in world language classes, they can use the services of the Language Resource Center. So there are a number of places students can get support. And also, speaking of the library, if you go to the library webpage, there's a 24/7 chat. So when your students are up in the middle of the night finishing their papers, you can go to bed. They don't need your help. There's a 24/7 librarian who's just at the other end of a chat, always there for students when they need us.
For some time now, we've been building a wellness ecology at PLU. And what that means is that we've prioritized ensuring that students had equitable access to mental health and physical health resources, as well as resources to support all dimensions of wellness, including their spiritual care. What that looks like for health and mental health is that students may choose to access one of the counselors in PLU's counseling center located on the 3rd floor of the Anderson University Center, but this fall also offered through telehealth modalities. In a similar vein, PLU's Health Center will offer some in-person care, but primarily offer care through telehealth options. In addition, we were gifted with foresight that didn't actually exist by instituting a resource called Lute Telehealth that includes nutrition and psychiatry for students, and that's available 24/7, 365. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Gracie?
Yeah, I've actually already taken advantage of Lute Telehealth. In the spring, kind of when everything started changing, I was pretty overwhelmed. So I went on Lute Telehealth and I made an emergency appointment with a counselor who was able to just talk to me and talk through what I was going through and my changing schedule and just the stress of everything that was going on at the time. And so there was the emergency option. There's also the option to have a long-term connection with a counselor, and you can have continuous meetings, scheduled meetings. And so it's an awesome resource, and I've seen lots of students take advantage of it.
Was it over the phone, Gracie, or was it like a chat, like a
It's
Zoom
video.
kind of thing?
Yeah, it was a
chat?
video option, which is so nice because you can still have the connection.
Yeah, that's great.
And then finally, we have an after-hours crisis line and a nurse advice line that also are available 24/7 and 365. So you can see that we have a layering of resources available for students that meet students where they're at and that allow them to access resources when works best for them. In a similar light, we have the Student Care Network. The Student Care Network is a group of staff and faculty at the university who come together on a regular basis to respond to student need. Anybody can submit a student care form. You'll find that on the front page of PLU's website. And you might choose to submit a form if you're worried that your student isn't sleeping well. You might choose to submit a form if you're worried that something may be occurring with a course and a grade. The Student Care Network responds to all submissions and does that by contacting the student through the relationship that would be most meaningful to them. So the follow-up might come from a faculty member, it might come from one of the resident assistants in the residence hall, or it might come from me if I happen to have a relationship with that student.
I think one of the cool things I think about the Student Care Network is it's really about a community of care that Gracie mentioned earlier. This idea that we're all looking out for each other.
Yes.
And so while we extend the invitation to our support members and family to fill out those forms, if they're concerned about their student, it's also something that faculty use when they're concerned about a student, right? So-and-so
right.
hasn't been engaged in class lately. I just wanted somebody to know. Or a student might say, right? I'm a little worried about my friend. She hasn't been eating much. I've noticed she hasn't been showing up to meals. An employee might submit a care form about a fellow employee. I know this person is experiencing some hardship in their life and just want to make sure that they feel the wraparound arms of this community. So I just want to kind of highlight that it's about students, but it's really about all members of the PLU community, and it's something I'm really, really proud of that we do.
It's about how we live into our mission. The way that we engage the Student Care Network is very unique to PLU. So you may hear about other schools that have case management services. This is different than that. It is about seeing people in their wholeness and caring for those things that matter to their being present for learning and participating in community. I also just wanted to briefly mention PLU's food pantry, recognizing that similar to the trends in mental health stress that folks are experiencing right now, recognizing also that students and their families may be experiencing basic needs challenges, and one of the things we've prioritized and have received recent grants for is our food pantry, which allows us to keep it fully stocked and open. So students will continue to have access to that resource, even as they may be living off campus. I wonder, Gracie, if you might talk about some of the centers at PLU or clubs and organizations that provide students with opportunities for leadership learning, and then also opportunities for a regular social schedule and for connection, as that can be really important to belonging, especially as a new student.
Yeah, right when I got to PLU, I really found my community in the Center for Gender Equity and in the Diversity Center. They'll be right next to each other this upcoming fall. So they're great resources for connecting with students who are in similar marginalized positions as you. So students who share identities with you, you can connect with them that way. You can also connect with the staff who's there as a resource to learn more about certain topics, or again, just to form community with. And there are opportunities for leadership in each of the centers as well. They're the D-Center advocates, and so they work on really cool projects and events throughout the year. And then in the CGE, there are employment positions where they also do some of those same things, creating the programming and the event coordinating, really cool things that the whole campus is able to enjoy.
Can either one of you speak to how students who are learning remotely this semester might be engaged with a center or clubs or organizations so they can still feel part of the community even while they're learning from home?
All of the centers will have purposeful virtual drop-in hours, as well as offer virtual programming that invites students in to participate actively or simply to observe as they're learning how to participate in that particular space or community. So similar to what will be occurring with classes, students can expect that access will be important to experience in the same way that we will offer a range of opportunities for micro-communities in person, meaning groups of 5 or less, as we continue to uphold our responsibility to our larger community, as well as lots of opportunities to engage remotely and virtually.
Yeah, and with my ASPLU team, we've also had the opportunity to talk to incoming students already. They found us maybe through social media or through the website, and I've sat down and had like 45-minute calls with students who wanted to know more, of course, about ASPLU, but also about the campus in general, and got to talk to a student about what it's like on campus and what we do at PLU.
I wonder if we could talk for a couple minutes about the role of family and support people in students' lives. I had mentioned earlier, that we used to talk to our parents on Sunday nights. So knowing now that many of our students will be learning from home, some will be living on campus, I wonder if we could talk a little about expectation setting in terms of how and when families get involved with their students. So from the academic division perspective, one of the things I think about is what is the role of parent or family member as consultant with respect to homework. So it stresses me out when I hear students tell me, I emailed my paper to my mom and she edited it for me. And I'm like, no, it's your paper, it's not your mom's paper. So I think part of expectation setting and communicating is understanding the role of student and the role of consultant, family member, support person. And it is actually, it's an academic integrity breach for parents to comment on, to change their students' papers. So the role of parent on the sidelines is cheering on, is directing students to the writing center. I've been thinking about this a lot as my own 19-year-old plans to enter college and was deciding what classes to take, and I was so glad he decided not to take sociology because I knew as a sociologist it would be really hard for me to not get all up in his business and ask him to read every paper and probably want to make suggestions and corrections. But I also know that's not the role of family once you have a college student. Consultant means, oh, you have an assignment due? Great. Maybe after you get it back from your professor, we can talk about it.
Or perhaps tell me how you're thinking about organizing it. Right. So as a consultant would, asking really good questions.
So so for the on-campus students, sending the emailing the paper home, not what we want anymore. Just as the remote learner, the support people shouldn't be helping to write the paper there. Yeah. Other expectations you can think of in terms of communication that might be important for families to set, whether their student is residential or living at home?
I think one of them might be in the way that you partner with us in regard to well-being. So whatever agreements you have as a family about how you will contribute to the overall containment of the spread of COVID, right? That you've agreed to wear face coverings, that you've agreed that harm reduction is a shared goal. And so acknowledging what your agreements are as a family are about how many people is your student interacting with outside of your household, and how is that occurring? And if they are participating in social gatherings, that things are in place for that to occur well. So encouraging physical distancing, thinking about people bringing their own snacks or beverages, and also considering that things occur outdoors whenever they can. And then if you're worried, we can be your consultants as well. So while FERPA, the federal privacy law, prevents us sometimes from sharing specific information, we can work with you with sharing concrete information about how we would approach a situation and providing you some support and guidance in how you might engage your student in that situation as well. What would you add, Gracie?
Something that I think would have been helpful for my parents and my support people to know when I got to PLU was that professors are such an incredible resource, and I found that some of my strongest mentors actually came from outside of my discipline, and they are the professors that I met my first year at PLU. So I think it's important for parents and support people and even students to know that you're not really bound by your academic advisor necessarily. There are support people all over campus who want to help you academically, but also with your well-being and with emotional support, and that really comes for me often in the form of a faculty member, and so faculty members are really important supports for me too.
I think one of the things I would encourage family members and support people to encourage their students to utilize is office hours. Office hours both that faculty provide and that centers or that staff may provide, particularly during COVID, where much will occur remotely. Those could be super important connecting opportunities. And it can be a casual drop-in, right? It can be a drop-in to see how a faculty or staff member or peer is doing, and to ask a question that leads to a conversation that, similar to what you were describing, Gracie, ends up being a longer-term relationship. So we hope that family members and support people will stay in touch with us. And we know that given this really unusual fall, that you may have questions that come up as we progress through time. So what we hope to do is offer some opportunities for Zoom gatherings, and we will communicate the dates and times of those soon, but also invite you to email us and to call us and to use the way of reaching us that is most comfortable and familiar to you. So you will see our contact information at the end of this video, and we invite you to connect with us whenever works best for you. Any last words or comments, Gracie or JG?
I'll just add that we are so excited to work with your students.
So excited.
So excited. Whether we work with them here on campus physically or at a distance, they're still part of our PLU community, part of our PLU family. And this is our favorite time of the year.
Yes, it is.
Because it brings new beginnings, right? New hope, new optimism. And even though things are really hard outside in the real world, gosh, what a great place to be to think about it, to talk about it, to reflect on it, and to just be cared for. So we're really excited to welcome your students here.
And we're committed to traveling this with you.
Go Lutes!
Woo!